Did they make
No,
contact?
I don't know. It's pretty close, but this is going to be a drag race.
Right
Look at
there,
this.
moves
Wow.
him to win it. Carl Edwards bump and dump and run.
Here comes Gordon right up to the bumper again. The bump and run.
There it is.
Maine to really turn around, Maine to Reilly's cage up.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to the Bump and Run podcast. I'm Michael D.Y., joined by my two best friends, Matt the Statman Reilly and Eric Daytona Ron. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you guys had yourselves a Bubba Wallace type of weekend. He was the big winner down in Kansas. And, of course, you know, we got NASCAR news, our race reviews, checkers and wreckers, our pick-a-lane debates, and, of course, our weekly betting segment. We were close to winning this week. So make sure you stick around to the end of the show to see who we're picking for Bristol this week. But and make sure you like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends. Podcast available every Monday night, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, all those places. bumpandrunpod.com, bump the letter and runpod.com. And of course, YouTube, Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. Fellas, how the hell are you? How's your weekends and how are you feeling on this Monday? That's a beautiful sky in the background, Matt.
Yeah, that's a painting I just bought.
A Bob Ross original?
Yes, yeah. So the cool thing about that is that it's electronic, so it'll change as the show goes here a little bit.
It becomes the night sky, and you get a little stars in the moon. That's a beautiful electric painting there. You know, Bob, you could buy Bob Ross originals. They're super fucking expensive. I looked for one before. Cheapest one I found was $2,500. Believe that shit.
You know what you do, Whitey? And it's what I have. I think my girlfriend or my mother, one of the two, they got me a Bob Ross calendar. And you know what? You just cut the whole top side off where the picture was. You put it in your own little frame, and you got a Bob Ross right there. And all of them are gorgeous, of course.
There you go. Happy little trees. But
speaking what, you were just talking about gambling and how we haven't won in a while and everything. Definitely listen to our gambling segment. We semi know what we're talking about, but after this weekend that I had with my college football gambling, you're gonna want to fade whatever pick I make at the end of this show. Just pick the opposite, because I made some money off the UFC fights, but as far as my college football and NFL picks, not a good weekend.
Yeah, and I
don't think you're alone though, Matt. I don't think you're alone. From what I've seen on my social feeds, seems like a lot of people got hit in week one, because week one was a little wild, just like the beginning of these NASCAR playoffs. It's very unknown, and a lot of upsets, and a lot of big teams, or big drivers in our case, not having the best of luck.
Struggling, and we'll talk about the struggles. I was struggling through that race yesterday, to be honest with you. Me and Daytona Ron, about 1 million other people were up at our buddy Robbie Schrey's house. He had a little end of summer party on Saturday night, absolute barn burner, and it made for a rough Sunday, to be honest with you. So I don't know how much of this race I retained. We'll get into it, but how about you guys? How are you feeling?
Ooh, it was definitely a rough one, like you said. Shredfest 2022 really it took a couple years, from me for sure. I love, tipping a few cold ones back while playing yard games and being active and, enjoying the last of the summer, So I spent a majority of the day playing a game called Bottle Bash, where you throw a Frisbee back and forth. So you're diving, you're catching. So Sunday I woke up, 32-year-old body was a little sore, it just wasn't used to the rolling around. And especially when you get to that certain point, you're not feeling any pain. So Sunday for me, I was right there with you, Whitey, on the couch, resting up, back bothering me, leg sore, cuts on my feet. It was a rough one for sure. But I wasn't as bad as I think you were. I was able to get excited for what I was seeing after I was done watching my Jacksonville Jaguars blow the lead in the fourth quarter against the Commanders. So watching the Jaguar game on my phone while the race started, it was a little sad when your team loses, your football team, because then you're kind of just like bummed.
It's hard to get yourself pumped up again.
Yeah, to get yourself back pumped up. It took me a little while, but I was able to get there. The racing did it for me. It was it was the on-track, entertainment that really did get me back involved into the race and getting excited for it.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat as you guys. So I wanted to get up to Shredfest, but having a brand new baby makes it really hard for that. So we were actually going to play it safe on Saturday night, have a nice quiet Saturday night. My wife and I are both big UFC fans, so we were just going to get the fights and enjoy that. You rewind a little bit back into Saturday and Marshall happened. The University of Marshall happened, and it was one of the worst Notre Dame losses of my lifetime, probably the worst Notre Dame loss of my lifetime. And for anyone who knows me, knows that my passion for Notre Dame football, I was miserable after that. And knowing that we had purchased the UFC fights, my wife pretty much told me, Matt, you better start drinking because I'm drunk. You guys know me. I'm a happy drunk. So she said, you better start drinking because you're miserable and you're bringing down the mood. So I cracked open a few, and then a few turned into a lot, and we watched the fights. It was a fantastic card. It was a wild UFC card that got all turned upside down the previous day, and fights had to be rearranged, and it was just a wild card. But so I ended up drinking a lot more than I ever planned to on Saturday night. Yesterday was a struggle for me as well. I was watching the race. It was one of those deals where not only was I hungover, but I have a baby who's not letting us sleep. So the tired level was on a whole different level yesterday. I watched every lap of the race. I watched every snap of the Jets game, and I retained almost none of it. But I went back and watched some highlights, so we're going to cover it all today. Don't worry. Right. We'll talk about it as best as we can. We'll throw our entertainment value in it, and we'll get through this one together today.
The bump and run as a whole was down bad yesterday. We were down as a whole so bad that we literally were snapping each other all day long of our misery. And just like at one point we told each other we have to get it together. And like we were just washed up. And the last one was why I was like, boys, we're washed up. We're washed. We were all in a real bad spot yesterday as a whole.
I tell you what, though, the Bump and Run podcast is the best pound per pound podcast on the internet, and we're going to bring it tonight. Even if we had a rough Sunday, we're going to have a great Monday night, and we're going to start right now with some NASCAR news because, we got a lot to cover today.
Tyler Reddick blew a tire in the lead. Oh wait, that's later. That's later on. Sorry, that's a little.
Anyways, we're hunting for a championship. We're 2 races into the playoffs, but it's been confirmed that NASCAR Champions Weekend will return to Nashville in the off season. I'm looking forward to it. I love the vibes that NASCAR brings to Nashville. And I think during the pandemic years, you really couldn't get the full experience, and I think we're going to reach that in 2022. How do you guys feel about that? I know I liked Vegas too. I thought Vegas had a cool vibe, but how do you feel about Nashville again?
I think Nashville is more NASCAR's vibe than Vegas. Not to take anything away from Vegas, it's had a NASCAR race there forever, but just Nashville being, I hate the stereotype of country music and NASCAR, but there's a lot of correlations with that, right?
Yeah.
And the town of Nashville, the electricity, the energy of being in the South, I think it goes hand in hand really good with NASCAR, and I really enjoy the awards banquet and all that too. Even though the season's over, it's fun. It's we get to look back and see what craziness happened throughout the season. It's pretty much the start of the holidays. It's like right before Thanksgiving or the weeks leading up to Thanksgiving, and so it's getting into the holidays. It's an exciting time of the year, and it also lets us kind of catch our breath after a long NASCAR season as well. So, I like it being in Nashville for sure.
I just look forward to the burnouts on Broadway. I'm just all about the burnouts. That's all I care about.
And you know what? I agree. And you could do burnouts pretty much anywhere. And my thing is, I feel like NASCAR could use this opportunity to gain more fans in other areas of the country. And I think we already have the fan base there. I know they want the fan base there to make it a big thing, But I also feel like it's too stereotypical of NASCAR to go to Nashville and the South and the country. And like, it's kind of like it has that same old stigma, with it. And like, I just feel like we could use this as an opportunity to help what we're doing these last couple years and grow the sport. And I think Vegas maybe isn't a place to grow it. You're going to get eyes on it there because there's just always a ton of people. But maybe use this, like we talked, the All-Star race and the Clash and some of these other things to help grow the sport. Maybe this one they could do something like that as well.
All right, so thinking
bad idea.
Thinking to the future, where would you want to see it moved? What's the next city? We have the Chicago street course, but you can't really do much in Chicago in the off season because it's so cold. What about
Seattle, the Northwest? We don't really have a footprint up there as a sport.
No, but it's also kind of chilly up there.
Right.
It is the winter time.
It makes it tough.
Do Miami.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was thinking Miami. Hit South Beach, and then you kind of give people a reason to go on vacation and come.
Perfect time of the year, like Matt said, for people up north to maybe go down and venture and go on vacation and maybe plan something to go down there and see. I don't know. I just think it's just like everyone's like, oh, okay, yeah, NASCAR goes to Nashville. I don't know. It just to me, it's I don't know. Maybe it could be utilized a little better. That's just where my brain goes.
Yeah, I just got a really good idea. You guys mentioned having the championship or the championship weekend, like the banquet weekend in Miami. You know what else would be a really good idea? Having the championship race in Miami.
I absolutely agree 100%. We've got it coming up in a couple of weeks in the playoffs, though. I'm excited to see what the new car does at Homestead, because so far it's been awesome on these 1.5 miles. I think Homestead's the best 1.5 miles. And I wonder, I'm looking forward to seeing what the attendance is like, because I wonder if Miami could use a little boost to get excitement around and bring the attendance to the track up. Maybe the
it could be like a trial. Like, hey,
can
see
do
what kind of fan base we get here, and maybe we could create that for a championship weekend. We'll see what a banquet weekend does.
Yeah.
And if that does well, maybe that's what they gauge, as far as, where they maybe could possibly have different championship races like we've talked about in the past. Get it out of Phoenix. Do we want it, every year to change, every other year to change? So, that's what I'm saying. Like the Clash, the banquet, the All-Star race, they could all be utilized to find and see if these markets are worthwhile or not.
Yeah. I and then real quick to wrap that up too, is I just wanted to add to it, like F1 was a raging success in Miami this past year.
Yeah.
So maybe gaining that motorsports, fandom down in Miami.
100%.
Might bring it to Homestead in October when they get down there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think really just any type of eyes in a big market is always a good thing. Speaking of eyes in an old market, though, we have a big announcement. I did not see this coming, to be honest with you. North Wilkesboro returning for the All-Star race in 2023. Dale Jr. got it done. That's that crazy son of a bitch. He brought his weed whacker out there to scan it for iRacing, and less than 3 years later, we're going there in real life again. I can't believe it. I have a big plate of crow I have to eat. If you listen to this podcast for any extended amount of time last year, I was a huge North Wilkesboro hater. I'm like, you'll never see it happen. It's never going to happen.
And Dave Moody as well was eating a lot of crow on Twitter. A lot of it.
Yep. And I got egg on my face and all sorts of other euphemisms, but I'm kind of excited. I'm excited to see what happens. I hope it's not a disaster is all I'm saying. How about you guys? How are you feeling?
I don't think it's going to be.
No, I'm worried because of,
if the Clash at the Coliseum worked, this will work.
Yeah.
That's where I gauged it from. I think if they made that work, they have to be able to make this work.
Honestly,
I still maintain that I would love to see them rip that track up and have it be the premier dirt track for stock car racing. and have that old school feel. And I mean, we've talked about this before. I don't need to get into it, but I think it'd be cool to see them rip that service up, maybe redo the stands.
I think that's the plan.
No, they scrapped that plan completely.
No, it's not. It's gonna be the hard surface. The actual,
No. I'm saying like after the All-Star race or whatever. Like once that one and done. Like I thought the plan was to make it a dirt track. Like
that was all just ideas. That was all just ideas being thrown around. That was never,
yeah. Well, no. So originally they were going to run late model stock cars, like stock car races, and then tear up the asphalt this month.
Yeah. Lay
dirt down, have dirt racing all of October, and then repave it to a brand new surface. But after the late model stock race that Dale Jr. was in a couple weeks ago, he said the surface is good. It's where we should have it, and they're keeping the old surface for the All-Star race. Now, what happens after the All-Star race? It should be interesting to see, but I'm assuming they're going to keep it if they can, if it's a success, and then they're going to just try to figure out their options in the future, whether it be a truck race or a full Cup weekend. I think it'll be interesting.
Schedule? Where's our 2023 schedule?
Well, I think we were waiting on the All-Star race to get finalized, and then they've been saying too, like, oh, we don't want to take away from the playoffs, which makes sense if you look to this time last year, we didn't have
planning for next year.
Yeah,
too. Like,
but we didn't have a schedule at this point last year either.
Really?
Yeah, no, we didn't. The last couple of years, it's been super late actually.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm sure it's coming in like the next couple weeks. We'll probably have it by the end of the month.
Probably would have been this week if it wasn't for I don't know if you guys heard or not, but there's some news going down tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I mean, big announcement tomorrow. It seems Kyle Busch is heading to RCR. It's a done deal apparently. Tuesday morning, KBM is holding a press conference. So it's not an RCR press conference. It's a Kyle Busch Motorsports press conference. So I'm assuming they'll kind of fill in the puzzle pieces of what's going on with the truck team, whether they're going to be switching manufacturers over to Chevy. I saw someone float the idea of RCR moving over to Toyota. I can't imagine that happening ever. I mean, Richard Childress is
in his grave.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think you could drive a Ford if you work for RCR. Like you have to have a Chevy in your garage. Yeah. So, but yeah, it seems like it's finally going to happen. Whether he's in the 8 car or a third car, we'll just have to wait and see. A lot of puzzle pieces still to be answered. As an RCR fan, I'm super excited. Can't wait. I hope KB wins a championship in the 8 car. I think that'd be cool. But I don't know. How are you guys feeling? You think it's a good move to go to RCR or what?
I think so. I mean, look at what Reddick's doing. I mean, even the 3, no matter how we got it, he's still got to win this year. Reddick's been, I mean, not to bust your balls, Whitey, but if it wasn't for a blown tire, he very well could have and should have won that race yesterday. So yeah. RCR isn't the RCR of the past 5 or 10 years. RCR's been running just as good as anybody this year. And I mean, for argument's sake, Reddick's been running better than KB.
I mean, for real, year. Yeah. I mean, he has more wins.
It's almost a step as an upgrade for KB if this is what he's doing.
Or does it show even more weaknesses for Kyle Busch and it just gets worse? That's what I'd be. That's what I'd be afraid of. As a Kyle Busch fan, like, man, he really struggled. Eric brought it up a couple weeks ago. He stole that win at Bristol. That was Reddick's win. Yeah. If he didn't get that, he wouldn't be in the playoffs right now. It'd be him and Martin Truex Jr. trying to get a win and spoil someone's day in the playoffs. And so far they've shown speed the last 2 races and both of them just having terrible luck. You picked Kyle Busch to win this week and he slid through the grass, and for Kyle Busch to lose a car like that car has to be out of control. Cause like how many amazing saves have we seen KB doing in behind the wheel, Yeah. So I don't know. It should be interesting. And then we have the other piece of what happens with Kurt Busch over at 2311. Denny Hamlin said he still has a job in that 45 car as long as he wants it. He's showing loyalty to Kurt. I like that. I think it's great. But it also makes me nervous, like where are all the puzzle pieces? In my mind, I'm thinking RC wants Toyota to buy Reddick out of his contract so he doesn't have to run a third car. Does that make sense to you guys? That seems like
I think in both scenarios, like a charter and who they lease it from and who they get it from is going to be the major thing to talk about it and to be keeping an eye out for, because if Kurt Busch does come back, and if RCR doesn't get that contract bought out for Reddick, then someone's going to need a charter from somewhere in order to run the guys that they supposedly say are going to be there and keep them on their roster. So the whole charter thing is going to be something that we'll have to keep a close eye on, and where those charters come from and how much. And, to me, it looks like for the most part, they're talking about running a third car. Like, getting a charter is going to be no issue, which to me seems really strange.
Yeah, or they know something with like maybe one of the back. I mean, us three have floated around the idea with Rick Ware Racing getting into other versions of motorsports. Maybe the garage knows that they're going to sell his charters at the end of the year. I mean, obviously, we don't know for sure. We don't have the connections at Rick Ware Racing, but there's been some speculation that could be a possibility. And then there's also the possibility of Kyle running an open car, which is also kind of nerve-wracking as a Kyle Busch fan, because if I'm not mistaken, and tell me if I'm wrong, if qualifying gets rained out,
you're done.
He's an open car. He doesn't make the field, right? If there's 40 cars.
So if there's 40 cars, yes. But there's also a past championship provisional. I talked about it. I made a short video over the weekend to talk about the breaking news. Right. Someone commented, and I thank you for your comment. You can only use it every 6 races, though. Okay. So that is a caveat to it.
What, the championship provisional?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can only use that every 6 races. So if you get 2 races rained out in a row, yes, you miss one of those races. But then at the same time, how often
you'll get a waiver for something? NASCAR will do something. You get a waiver for this or for that. It's Kyle fucking Busch. They'll come up. We'll pull some kind of waiver out of their ass so that they get them in.
I was gonna say, how often do we have 40 car fields too? It's highly unlikely. And then someone just did it. Who did it? Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece ran an open car for JTG Doherty last year, and there was literally 0 issues. He qualified in on speed during the duels, and he was fine for the rest of the season. It almost became a non-story where like people forgot. The only thing is then you make less money as a car out there, because now you're not getting guaranteed money for every position. Now you're just getting paid out like a certain percentage or whatever, so
I
so
think
there
that's
is options.
The last thing that they do is like that. I don't think Kyle Busch would sign if that was the deal, if he's going to go into something like that. Like, no, look at the pressure he was in this year with all the bullshit, the storylines, his team going here, going there. The lack of wins the last couple years. The last thing he wants to deal with once he finally signs a deal is more bullshit drama that he's got to worry about. All he wants to do is get in that car, focus, and go out there every weekend and race. And if he's in an open car, that's not what he wants. That still leaves something on his mind that he's got to think about that can and will, and it looks like it has been affecting his performance on the racetrack.
Yeah, in my mind, honestly, like if they do need a third charter, I think the most likely thing will happen, I saw someone float this idea and it just makes sense to me, is using the Spire 77. Right now Spire's always kind of had like an affiliation with RCR. I know the 7's in their own shop. I'm not sure exactly where the 77 is built. I think it's also built in that shop. But they get their motors from Hendrick and ECR and all that stuff. So I think that's a good likely scenario to happen if they need that third car, and then throw Reddick in the 77 or whatever. Because right now the 77 doesn't have a single driver. It's kind of that rotating driver pool of different guys coming in and out, So I don't know. Who knows? They'll figure it out. We'll find out tomorrow. Hopefully we'll find out all the details. That's been the thing. It's so nerve-wracking because like like on the surface level, it's like, oh, where's Kyle Busch going? But then it's like, where's KBM go? What happens to John Hunter Nemechek? You know, there's like a bunch of drivers that he has in that Toyota pipeline. Now they're like, where do they go? You know, what happens to them? So very excited for the press conference tomorrow. I think it's going to happen either at
10 a.m.
10. Yeah, I thought it was 10. So 10
Actually,
o'clock.
by the time everyone's listening to this, it'll be today at 10 a.m.
Yeah, exactly.
Listening on Tuesday morning.
So yeah, looking forward to that. Maybe we'll make another video after the announcement to break it down, depending on if there's any types of bombshells. But speaking of KBM, John Hunter Nemechek, the big winner in the Truck Series this weekend. You want to jump into the race weekend? I honestly didn't watch the truck race because I forgot there was a truck race on. It's been, what, 4 weeks since we had truck racing, and honest to God, I just completely forgot about it. Apparently, it was a heartbreaker for Carson Hocevar, who finished in second again.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah.
Obviously, I didn't watch it either, but that news.
So he finished in second again. They were on a real weird pit strategy. They kind of got forced into a weird strategy where the crew chief kind of just tossed all of it to the wind, and apparently I didn't get to see it. I wish I did. Apparently, if the race was 2 laps shorter, he would have gotten his first win. We always talk about like, yeah, we always talk about like, oh, if there was 5 more laps, he could have caught him. You know, in this case, it was, and if there's 5 less laps, he would have had no problem winning that one. So heartbreaker for Carson Hocevar.
Speaking of the truck series, I saw so apparently Michael Waltrip is doing some sort of cross promotion between, he has his own beer.
Yeah.
And he's doing some sort of cross promotion with Dale Jr. with High Rock Vodka. So Michael Waltrip posted a video on his Twitter page today, and he's got a full gray beard. And
I saw that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. He you want to know what? I fucking love Mikey. I know a lot of people think he's annoying.
I know I'm probably in the minority. I love Michael Waltrip.
Me too. Even when I was a little kid, I don't know. His name was really similar to mine. So
I love Michael Waltrip. I hate the grid walk. I'm sorry.
I don't like the grid walk.
Michael Waltrip, hate the grid walk because the grid walk is why people hate him.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they never did the grid walk, people wouldn't hate him like they do. Because he's one of the best in booth guys for the trucks. Like, he is very, very knowledgeable in that booth, and I love the way he calls a race. But yeah, the grid walk, I think that's where it was a little too corny for me, and I think that's not really, like, he really played that up too, and you could tell that he's trying to be goofy.
That's Fox being Fox.
Right.
Yeah, they took something that was fun a couple times and they beat it to death, and that's usually what they do. But yeah, the man's super passionate in that booth. I think he's fantastic, and you need that to pump up these younger drivers too. I think he's a great just personality for the sport. But yeah, John Hunter Nemechek, he kind of sounded deflated after the truck race though, because honestly, it seems like he doesn't know what his future entails. And then Saturday, Xfinity was on track. Noah Gragson won a rain-shortened race at Kansas. And I tell you what, just powering through, getting ready for these playoffs. I think he's got a real chance to win this championship.
Did you guys see what he did after? Oh, am I still there?
Yeah, you're still there.
Sorry, my thing shook. Did you guys see what he did after? So it was a rain-shortened win, right? So he won, and he was in the garage. He went out to the front stretch to hang out with the fans that stuck around during the rain delay to celebrate with them.
That's cool. That's really cool.
He's growing on me. I know if you've listened to the show for a while, you know, we, again, another love-hate relationship with him. We just kind of asked that he matured because he showed some real immature. He's done and said some real immature things, but he's really coming into his own. He's starting to win, and he does really cool things like that makes me really want to root for him. And now Eric is going to be your teammate. So
right, and like you said, Matt, I think the criticism that we gave him was warranted. I don't think we ever were egregious or went out of our way and like picked any little thing just to bring him down. Every time that we kind of ragged on him, I think it was a worthy critique of whatever he did in that scenario. It was fair. So yeah, once again, he definitely is growing on me as well. And, he's going to be my teammate. And, if you did listen to us in the past, you'll call, oh, what are you doing? You were saying this. Yeah, that was then. He, Junior probably got into his ear a couple times. Like we said, hey, listen, there's certain ways to handle this and go about it. And, I think that some of those conversations with him really helped him mature and build that fan base that you need in this sport to carry you through. So yeah, I'm excited to see Noah up in Cup. He's really coming into his own.
Yeah, I agree. And how many times on this podcast do we say like, oh, these guys need to kind of get like a little bit of a gimmick, like build up a little bit of a character. And Noah's a character.
Put that leather jacket on and be that, the
ripping a lung dart,
really cute clocks.
Like right now, Noah Gragson is doing what I wish William Byron did. Like I wish William Byron was just like a cool, badass type of dude. But you want to know what? He's been badass on the track the last 2 weeks. I tell you what. But got to give it down. Bubba Wallace absolutely killed it yesterday in the Cup Series.
That was Bubba Wallace. I had son of a bitch.
Oh, you wore the wrong. Well, you got the right number. You got the right number. The 45 swept Kansas this year. 2 different drivers. I saw a stat. I forget the year. It's the first time it's been done since the 70s with the Wood brothers when AJ Foyt won the Daytona 500. And then another driver won with the Wood brothers at like the Coke 600.
Was it Pearson?
It could have been. I think so. But yeah, for a first time I've ever seen it happen. I didn't even think it was possible to have 2 different winners in the same number in one season. Kind of crazy, but he led himself. How many laps did he lead?
50-some.
He led twice for 58 laps.
58 laps. Yeah.
We had 9 cautions for 43 laps. Tons and tons of cautions. We only had 8 last time we were at Kansas. 16 lead changes among 12 different drivers. Your top 5, Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Alex Bowman, and Martin Truex Jr. And C. Bell, the only one to lock himself into the round of 12 in the playoffs on points. So Christopher Bell, man, my early prediction so far, doing really well. I think he's going to go far in these playoffs. But what'd you guys think of the race?
I'll tell you what, before we get into that, when Ty Gibbs hit the wall in the 23, did you guys do what I did? Again, I was half asleep. I was watching it. I had one eye on the Jets game, but I was like, oh no, Bubba. Not Bubba. Never mind. Okay, we're still good. And then he ends up winning the race.
Not only did I do that, I was so confused at the 45 car. I'm like, what's this blue car? It was the blue Root insurance car. I'm like, who drives the 45? I'm so used to seeing the monster black 45 where I associate that car with Kurt Busch and now like Bubba. I'm like, who's the 45? I'm like, oh, it's Bubba. Oh, it's a different paint scheme. Just blew my mind.
Same with the 11 too.
Yeah.
Well, that's like yesterday. I threw this shirt on out of respect, because he wasn't going to make the race. He won it in the spring. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to throw my Kurt Busch 45 shirt on out of respect for him.
Yeah.
Can't make the race. You know what I mean? And I didn't even realize it until just a minute ago when I did that little bit that I had this shirt on yesterday. I'm like, wait a minute. Cause like Bubba, I'm thinking 23, Matt, like you said. And I didn't even connect the dots that I was wearing this shirt yesterday and the 45 ended up winning. So, yeah, it was confusing at a couple times during the race where it did get me.
You know what, though? Like the Bump and Run podcast, like we are the voice of the fan. That should be our catchphase because how many people do you think watched that race yesterday in the same condition that we did? Probably a lot of that.
Right.
At least a couple 100,000, I would say. Right. I tell you what, though, a lot of people are questioning, why are they putting Bubba in the 45 car for the playoffs? Well, it's to run for the Owners' Championship. And case in point, going into Kansas, they were sitting in 10th in the Owners' Championship bracket. Right now, they are sitting in 5th, only 19 points behind Christopher Bell, your leader. So already paying off when it comes to that Owners' Championship. I think a lot of the casual fans, the Cup casual fans, who don't pay attention to the Xfinity series, I know it sounds a little counterintuitive saying because we didn't watch the Xfinity race this weekend, but from watching so many Xfinity races, I'm so used to the Owners Championship being a thing because there's a lot more guys running part-time schedules in cars. You know, the Joe Gibbs All-Star car is always running for that Owners Championship. Josh Berry, when he was running for Junior Motorsports, when he was splitting time with other guys, they were running for that Owners Championship. So it was always being brought up in Xfinity races, but you really don't hear much about the Owners Championship in the Cup racing because everyone's full time pretty much going for that regular season championship or the regular player points championship. You know, does that make sense? Am I making sense here?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, put it this way, and I've said this a lot this week, I feel like, to a lot of people. We're not the normal NASCAR fan where, like, we understand that, we get that. So, like, when that announcement was made that he wants to run for the Owners Championship, like, I'm like, okay, yeah, I do the same thing, you know? But to the normal fan that just watches, like, what? I don't get it, I don't understand it. But it is a big deal. And
for the owners,
you know,
and especially for the manufacturers and stuff, too.
So,
yeah.
For them, this is like if we want our driver to win the championship, but the owners, they have their own stake. You know, the driver wants to win for the driver, but those owners, they want to be able to point the finger and be like, hey, I'm the top dog around here.
Oh, yeah.
So it is interesting to follow for me. And you know, I wish a lot more of the fans took that a little bit more seriously and into consideration, because then you would understand why Daytona, why Chevy works with Chevy, why Toyota works with Toyota, and vice versa. So it's like then it all starts to make more sense as a whole, the sport of NASCAR, and you get a better understanding. So just do some digging into that if you're not, you know, very familiar with it. And when you do that, like we do, and even here listening to us, these little nuances and little things really help piece the whole sport together. And then on Sunday, from year to year, you'll find yourself as a fan getting more in depth and more in tune to what's going on, and it makes it way more exciting and fun to watch every week. And it's those little things that do that for me, at least, and I think that helps others as well.
Yeah, I always compare NASCAR to baseball and golf. The more you know about the sport, the more interesting things become, you know? And there's a manufacturers championship that they're running for. Right now, Chevy's in the lead by 92, Ford's in second, and Toyota's in third. Chevy has 16 wins, Ford and Toyota each have 6 wins. That's another one that no one really ever talks about, the manufacturers championship, but it is a big deal to those manufacturers. Like, that's why they're in the sport, you know, to get the exposure. And I think that's kind of why, I mean, to go back to the NASCAR news a little bit, I think that's why RCR is willing to pull in KBM and stuff, because Chevy wants to sell more Silverados, and the Truck Series helps do that, you know. But you guys want to jump into the grades for the weekend?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's start with Matt this week. What'd you think of the race?
I liked it. Like I said, my headspace wasn't the best, but I went, you know, I enjoyed what I saw when I was watching it, even though, you know, I was tired. Went back, watched the highlights that NBC puts out, a solid highlight program that you can go and find. It fills you in on everything as well. Just to kind of, I usually do that before we record every week, just to refresh my memory.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm a fan of Bubba Wallace's, so I enjoyed that aspect of it too. Not that I ever try to factor my race or whoever won the race into my race grade. I didn't, but that does help sometimes. I gave it a B. It was a solid B race. It wasn't the best race I've ever seen, but it for sure had my attention. I thought the high line was obviously the dominant line. It was another race where we had 4 guys that led for 20 plus laps. There was a couple times where we thought Bowman was going to win. He looked like for a while he was going to run away and dominate it. He didn't. Reddick, it looked like he was going to run away and dominate it. He has the tire issue. With several guys go down with tire issues. Hell, Harvick, a past champion of this sport, has an issue. He's now sitting in last place in the playoffs going into Bristol, where he's won a ton of times in a must-win position.
Yeah, he's minus 35 points. He has to win.
He has to win, and he knows it. So we had the tire problems galore. And again, a non-playoff driver running away with the lead at the end of the race and outrunning Denny Hamlin for the second straight week to open up these playoffs. And we don't have a playoff driver who has won a race yet, which is the first time that's ever happened 2 races into the playoffs. And it's just been crazy. And I'm thoroughly enjoying the mayhem, even as a Chase Elliott fan, a guy who's our regular series champion, our regular season champion, is in a situation where he needs to collect some really good points. One mishap on Saturday night in Bristol this upcoming weekend, and he's out too.
I couldn't imagine, I can't believe the place some of these guys are in.
I don't want that to happen. Again, being a Chase Elliott fan,
it's nerve-wracking.
If it happens, it's going to add to just from a fan, overall sport, a fan of the sport perspective. If it happens, it happens, and it just adds another crazy layer to this season. So, but yeah, the race yesterday was a solid B race, just a good race.
All right.
Yeah, Matt, that's such a good point. And I think I touched on it a little bit last week where I said, I'm excited to see how these playoff drivers deal with the non-playoff drivers come the rounds of 12 and 8. And now imagine you have to deal with Chase Elliott as a playoff driver if he doesn't make it. So we already saw first 2 non-playoff drivers. So I think these non-playoff drivers are going to be a real big factor in these playoffs going forward. And I don't think we've seen the end of this mayhem as far as that goes. All right, so my race grade, I looked back at the first, Kansas race to just see what we were in for. And Toyota seemed to dominate the top 5. And, I gave that grade an A.
Yeah.
It was a great overall race. We saw exciting restarts, tire fall off, comers and goers, great battles, it was hard to pass. A lot of weird wild card to, big teams with big name drivers. And here it says the finish was exciting as well.
Yeah.
So that was my notes from the first race.
Yeah.
Pretty similar, not the ending.
No.
So that's why I went B+ here instead of the A, because we didn't get that great finish like we really wanted, that we're used to seeing.
They were trying to build it. They were trying to build oh, Denny's hunting him down. Can he make it through lap traffic quick enough and everything? As I was watching, I'm like, there's no way Denny's making up 2 seconds.
It was a big win for Bubba and the 45. That made it, I guess, a big win, but an exciting ending to the race, not there. So I had to give it the the B+. I couldn't go the full A. But just like in the first one, battles all day, good hard racing. The difference, I think, this race versus the first one, where it was so hard to pass, was Steve Letarte nailed it a little bit where he explained it, and I thought it was interesting. The teams were side drafting a lot harder and way more aggressive on Sunday than in the previous race. Yeah. And that's what it took to take the air off and to make the passing a little bit more in this race. I think they even went to the cutaway car and showed the diffuser and how the air is more streamlined instead of coned out like last year's car was.
It makes it more difficult to side draft and stuff, doesn't it?
So it's harder to side draft. So you have to get closer, almost touching. And I think he said it was Christopher Bell was doing it really, really well.
Yeah.
The dirt guys were doing it really, really well. And some other drivers, Dale Jr. said, and it was kind of a jab at him, the way I took it. And when they were talking about the side drafting he goes, some drivers, talking about Blaney, he doesn't have that in his bag of tricks.
Yeah.
So he basically said Blaney's not used to really side drafting, getting that close and making those moves.
Yeah.
Because in turn, and it leads me to my next point, the high line seemed to be the dominant line all day, unless you were one of those drivers like Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, where you could set up that side draft go to the bottom of the racetrack and get that slide job in front of the other driver.
Yeah.
And only certain cars were able to make that move.
I remember the Dale Jr. line now because he was trying to set up for a slide job. He's like, I don't think he has that in his repertoire.
Yeah,
or whatever. Yeah.
Like, oh shit, Dale! Like you're busted Blaney right on live TV.
But he is right though. Like not everyone can do those types of moves and hold on to it. You know, and like you said, it's the dirt guys. I feel like the dirt guys have that ability. Like that's in their set of skills, and you're not going to get that from everybody. You know.
And, you know, 2 tires, it didn't make a difference now, especially with this car. He nailed that too. And like, I didn't take that into consideration until he brought that up. The difference between 2 and 4 tires is only like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Or 5 seconds. So why not just put the full 4 tires on instead of 2? You're not gaining much. And I thought that was a nice little, tidbit that Steve, graced the fans with it. And I learned something there with that as well, because you saw the 22, even on 4 tires, though, he still couldn't get his lap back. So, the comers and goers with the different strategies on who to, who was in the front. You saw it's like Bowman's leading and then now he's in the back and now he comes forward. A lot of different strategies, 3, 4 wide, a lot of similarities to that first race that I liked. But the ending and some of the, I don't want to say the tire issues were a drag on it, because even in that first race, there were weird issues. I think that was the race where just weird fluky stuff was happening with, it was next gen car issues in the beginning.
People
of
were getting
season
stuck in everything. Like those early races were so sloppy compared to what they are now. Like, do you remember the beginning of the season where there's no way they're going to be able to race all season with these tires? Right. you get 4 flats and you're fucked. You can't move. You get 2 on one side. You can't move. How many times do we talk about the tow trucks, destroying guys' cars, trying to push them onto pit road and everything. And those just kind of went away. It's kind of crazy. But
even the parts shortages, we never really they never really let us know oh, hey, we're good with that.
Yeah. No, it's
no more worrying.
It
just kind of was business as usual. And one day they were all caught up.
Yeah,
no more worrying about it.
It became a non-issue. It might still be an issue, and we just don't know about it, and it's kind of forgotten about. But yeah, I think you make some good points about that race. Maybe it was better than in my mind.
Well, I wanted to give it. I was going to give it an A- because of the actual entertainment value it gave me. I think I went more what did the race do for me rather than just the whole playoffs, taking everything into a whole scenario.
Yeah.
I think if you do that, I give it that A- because of, obviously you, Whitey, the drama of Reddick blowing the tire, great, number 1 listener of the show, Shredder Shrey, Shredfest 2022. Woo. But sucked 4 car going down.
Yeah.
I hate seeing my friends in misery when their drivers go down, but for the entertainment value of it,
it's damn entertaining.
The issues in the tires, it made it interesting because when Bubba Wallace at the end there knew Denny was coming down behind him, what's to say that he didn't blow a tire pushing too hard to stay out front?
I was waiting for it.
Super nervous at the end of that race. So I guess that did add for an exciting finish because there was not a threat of Denny passing him, but in the back of my mind, there was a threat that he could have a caution for someone blowing a tire,
anybody, or
him blowing a tire. So
that's what I was waiting for.
Yeah, so I guess I'm in between a B+ and an A- for my race grade, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just gonna admit it. I was super salty. I gave it a B-. I wasn't too thrilled about it, but hearing you talk about the race, I'm like, man, maybe I should have just been paying more attention because like you said, the chaos with the tires was entertaining. But we didn't really see many battles for the lead, and I don't think we saw that in the springtime either. It seems like
it was hard to pass, like I said, and it. I think the drama, I think I gave it the A in the first week because of the drama. And I tried not to maybe take that into consideration this time around.
Yeah, my whole deal with because I like to see a lot of passing for the lead and stuff. I think the only true pass for the lead under green was Bubba near the end. Like he passed for the lead and then kind of ran away with it. If I think I'm remembering that correctly.
No,
right?
yeah, you're right.
Before that, I think every lead change was either due to like green flag pit cycle stops or restarts. Like someone got a jump on the restart and took the lead that way. So, and the restarts are super exciting. I mean, like you said, they were going 3-4 wide. Like that was fucking awesome, you know. I think just for me, why I gave it a B- was because I was in a sour mood over my guy who, you know, had
Rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, and like Matt said earlier, we try not to let that affect you, but like in the end, it still does. You know,
we're human. We're all emotional fans, you know, so it does affect us.
Like, you know, he went into practice super fast, got the pole, was leading a whole bunch of laps. I'm like, yes, this is our day, and it's like what maybe the third race where he had a super dominant car and didn't end up with the win. But again, that's racing. Like that's just part of it. That's why we love it too. You know, it's unpredictable.
Do you know how I knew that it wasn't going to be Reddick's day?
How's that?
It was on an oval.
And there's a lot of grass in Kansas. Kyle Busch ended up being the lawnmower this week, but
yeah, I did.
No,
yeah, I did.
You know what sucks though? So I was listening to Reddick on Sirius XM today. He does the interview every Monday with Larry Mack and Danielle Trotta. He said like he probably could have gotten through the rest of the day. Like the tire is gonna blow regardless. But it just so happened it was around the time where he was passing lap cars, so he was further away from the wall. So the momentum and the hit into the wall was just bigger. Like if he was riding that high line like he had been for so long, like he would have kind of pulled what happened to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. where like
I was just gonna say, Ricky was right next to the wall. There was hardly any damage because he was right there. Tire blows and he rode the wall a little bit and his car was in better shape.
I mean, Ricky still had a terrible day after that. Like he didn't bounce back to where he was. I mean, he was running the top 5 at some point, you know. But yeah, I mean, it made for an interesting thing. It was like, oh, when is the next tire failure going to happen? Because so many guys had it happen. And then like you and Matt said, like, you know, at the end when Bubba was leading, I was just waiting for a caution to come out. I'm like, all right,
I'm so shocked that there wasn't.
Yeah, I'm like, how's he gonna get fucked out of this one? You know,
did the same thing last week with Eric leading. You know, I was is this caution gonna come out, and it never did. So,
but yeah, I gave it a B-, but it was probably better than that. I probably agree with both of you guys. It was like a B+. But how about the checkers and wreckers, Matt? What's your checkers and wreckers for the weekend?
So I'm going with really, really low-hanging fruit here for my checkers. Not just Bubba Wallace, but 2311 Racing in general.
Yeah.
They made a pit crew change. You know, we all remember how bad Bubba's pit crew was in the beginning of the year. And it helped Bubba out tremendously. It worked when they made that switch. And then they made the switch.
You want to what?
Bubba into the 45 to get the owner's points, and it big time worked. They just won a race. Whitey gave the stats earlier where I think they were 10th and now they're 5th in the owner's points.
Yeah.
And if you've been paying attention to, this win shouldn't have been a surprise because it's been coming. Over the past 10 races, Bubba has the best average finish of a 10.1, which it's a position and a half over second place in that category, which is Chase Elliott, who has an 11.6, I believe. So Bubba's been performing. He's been the best average finisher for the better part of 2.5 months now, and he finally was able to reap the benefits of having a really fast car. It was good to see. It was it's always going to be a polarizing win with him, which I'll get into in a second. But for people who know what they're talking about, who care about the sport, I think it was a really popular win yesterday.
I think so too. I know what you're going to get into in a little bit, and from my perspective, I saw a lot of positivity over this win, and I want to get back to that pit crew change too, because in the moment we're like, man, this sucks for Christopher Bell. Like he's going to get fucked out of this one too.
And he did the next race.
And he did the next race.
So we were all like, oh, it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah. But then, you look 10 weeks and he's on his own tear too. Like Like, just that little change, it worked for both teams. And it's kind of surprising, but like, man, I'm glad they did too, because now, you know, like Christopher Bell, he's locked into the next round. He's been running super consistent. Another top 5 for him this week. And Bubba's been running super consistent. And that includes like that best finish right now, that average finish of 10.5 or 10.6. That includes finishing like 35th at Watkins Glen when he broke. Now, Chase Elliott in second, he also finished last week, and he had a really rough day at Daytona too, where his average finish is really thrown off. I did the math earlier in the day. If Chase finished 15th in both of those races or better, his average finish would be like, I think it was a 7.6 or something like that. So there is something to say there. But again, everybody's having these types of problems, you know, like that's what's been crazy the last 2 weeks with Darlington. This week, like playoff drivers are having major problems during these races, and then non-playoff drivers are winning. It's pretty crazy. But how about your records? What's your records for the weekend?
So, admittedly, I had a real hard time picking a records, but something that just kind of stood out to me a little bit online last night on Twitter, really in all the comment sections on social media is, man, the hate for Bubba Wallace. And it's disheartening. You know, it's sports. Some people are going to love you. Some people are going to hate you. That's part of it. But just the ugliness that really gets pointed towards Bubba for one reason or another is it's disheartening. And you know, there's certain, you know, media personalities that have nothing to do with NASCAR that go after Bubba Wallace just because they know it's going to be clickbait. But what they don't realize is what it's actually doing. You know, Bubba's still a human, you know, right? And there's still that human element that I guess people don't think about. And you know, Bubba's been open with us. I mean, they mentioned it, you know, immediately in the post-race interview with Bubba, how he's been open with us about his struggles with depression and anxiety. And to see people still going after Bubba, even though he proved himself. You want to take this first win away from him because it was a rain-shortened race? I don't agree with you. Yeah. But at least you had a little bit of a leg to stand on. Like now, you have no leg to stand on. The dude went out there, passed under green flag conditions. Like there's not an excuse in the world that a hater can use, but they're still trying to knock Bubba down. And it's just, it's frustrating to see that. And I wish it wasn't the case. So my records goes to the haters, not because they dislike Bubba, but the things that they say about him are just nasty.
Yeah. And if you pay attention, like truly pay attention, like he's doing just fine. You know, he's been on the best 10 race stretch of his entire career. Like he's, you know, he might not be a superstar talent where it's like, oh, you know, he's going to be running top 5 like Kyle Larson, or even, you know, like a generational talent like Kyle Busch, you know. But some people, they're like, he doesn't even deserve to be in his ride. Like, that's bullshit. It's bullshit. You know,
those are the people, like Matt said, those are the people looking for those clicks. And that's even more disgusting to me that you're using this kid who, you know, most of the world knows the situation he's going through with anxiety and depression. And you're just adding to it by wanting clicks, and you're trying to make money off of someone's pain and misery. That to me is the lowest of low of a person. And there's a lot of them out there, and it's a shame. But, you know, I always criticize Bubba for his performance and on the track. And now we're seeing, I say it about everybody who I criticize, let's see them get into a car and see how they perform in top equipment. Yeah. And he's getting his shot, and he's proving to everybody that he belongs behind the wheel of a cup car. And the thing is, this goes for any profession, any sport, anybody that's in the limelight. You're going to get the hate, and no matter what, they're just going to keep moving the bar. Yeah. And, you know, it's like, it goes from he's never going to win a race to he'll never win a race again. And then they're just going to keep, like, they're just going to keep moving that bar to something else, you know?
And I think what happened to it was a big disservice to 23XI. They came in so hyped last year where they're like, we're going to win 2 races. We're going to make the playoffs. We're going to do all these great things. And then they had the Joe Gibbs affiliation and all that stuff. and they struggled, and they struggled like any new team is going to,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But the problem is there's so much hype surrounding it. I feel like these last 10 races are where they wanted to be last year. You know what I mean? So, I think the future's bright. I'm super excited for Tyler Reddick to get there. I think from here it's only going to get better, and I think you are seeing the true talent Bubba has, you know. And like I said, you know, we criticized him last year, where it's like, man, you really you need to step it up. You need to be performing better, you know. And now he is, you know. And
a lot of times it's the support, not necessarily the equipment.
I was going to bring up Kurt Busch. I was going to bring up Kurt Busch. I think Kurt Busch has done wonders for Bubba. And I think Kurt Busch not being on track, but being in the war room, because he's in the war room for every race. He's communicating with the team and helping them out. I think that's just elevating that 45 car with Bubba in
support. Like, you need people that you could really feel that trust. You need people surrounding you that you know that they believe in you. You know deep down that they want you to win.
Yeah.
And they're going to do whatever that they can to get you that win. And, you know, I thought of Suarez and a lot of his interviews. He mentioned that. He was on big teams, but he never felt supported. He never felt like they had his back 100%. And when he met Justin Marks and went to Trackhouse, that was family there. He felt the support and the will and the want to get him to victory lane. And I think, you know, Bubba has that with 2311 and with Jordan and Denny and like you just said, Kurt Busch. I just think Denny signed him and surrounded him with a good group of guys and a good group of people that allows Bubba to not worry about that anxiety, to know that he's got a support behind him.
Yeah.
And it was cool to hear Freddie say it. He's like, got the lead, run your race, go ahead.
Yep.
You know, like just.
And then they were just silent on the radio pretty much until like you had to pass lap cars and you know, you clear them. But like, yeah, I thought that was really cool. You know, just let him take some deep breaths and just drive his race, you know?
Whitey, one thing I wanted to ask you, thinking about it too, is being a Reddick fan, how did it, I mean, you've got to, like, so let's go back a couple of weeks, right? When you first got the news that Reddick was going to 2311, your first initial reaction was like, oh, shit.
It was kind of devastating, to be honest with you.
After the last few weeks, you feeling a little better about it?
I am feeling like complete 180 excitement about it. You know, it went from like, when I got that news, when you sent that text message, I had a feeling in the pit of my stomach. I'm like, no, because they had been running so bad. This, like, you have to remember, this was before. I think it was before the pit crew swap, or it was maybe like a week or two after.
No, it was right around the same time, I think.
Yeah. So I'm like, man, their pit crews fucking suck. Like they haven't been performing. Like Kurt had the win, but like even he was struggling, you know. But these last 10 weeks, man, I'm super excited. Where I want him to get bought out of his contract and brought over a year early. I want him in a Toyota next year. I'm
a young, hot, fun team too. You know,
it's cool. It's kind of cool. Like they have some cool faces. You know, like I don't know. I think they could do some real cool stuff. Kind of like what Trackhouse is doing. You know, like I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm pumped about it. I'm excited. I'm here for it. But I'm also here for Eric's checkers and wreckers. I want to know what you're thinking over there.
My checkers actually piggybacks right along with this. I gave it to Tyler Reddick.
Okay.
Having a
surprise,
shit day,
but all right.
In the lead, blows his tire, but you see what kind of person and driver and teammate he's going to be. I saw a video on Twitter where he moved over for Denny Hamlin coming off of pit road so Denny could get a clear launch and get around him. I just thought Reddick moving over for Denny Hamlin was just, that's who Reddick is as a person. He's like, listen, I'm fucked. I'm not going to do anything here. I'm screwed. Like, you know what? Hey, this is going to be my new boss. I might as well be a smart player now.
Yeah,
that was a business decision, but also I just think that's who he is. as a competitor.
Oh,
you know, he like that move made me a Reddick fan. Yeah, like it just that is the little things that I look for in drivers who I want to root for. And you know, like we all get other driver shirts who we respect. Like we have our guy, but we like to support other drivers too. And I thought that was really cool. He didn't want to impede the race any more than he could have.
Yeah.
And caused a little controversy there. But I just think that just shows what type of person Reddick was. So that was just cool.
How about your records?
And my records, I guess it's more of a tinfoil hat than a records, but it's just the win and you're in. It's kind of showing up now why I don't like it. And it's completely tinfoil hatty, but what the 24 and 48 did yesterday just goes to show that some of these 4-car teams have an ability throughout a season to really gain an advantage on the field when they get some of their cars an early victory.
Yeah.
And then, you know, okay, who is the number one driver? Chase Elliott. Okay, we got to keep him up there winning. And Kyle Larson, champion. Those are your two moneymakers at Hendrick, right?
Yep.
Now, to the basic fan, not many people give a shit about William Byron or Alex Bowman. They'll just throw them to the wind. They don't think anything of them.
No. I mean, we care about him on the Bumper Run podcast, but yeah.
Right, but like most people well, William Byron and Alex Bowman, they just care about Larson and Chase.
That's the money makers. Those are the faces.
So all year long, I just think this happens. William Byron gets an early win. Bowman gets his wins. Okay, how about this week? You guys run these tire pressures. You guys run this camber. We'll see if your tires blow. We'll keep our money makers up front. And I think that goes down. I think it's a team thing. I think it's team orders. We all know how team orders happen nowadays in this sport, and the drivers tend to go along with it. And to me, it just seems very unfair for teams like you look at Trackhouse in that 1 in 99. They started out so hot. And guess what? They fizzled out because they don't have those extra cars to really go in and make this, you know, these adjustments and stuff. They're doing it on the fly with the cars that they need to win out there. So you saw everyone catch Trackhouse. And you look at RCR in the 8 and the 3. They don't have that opportunity.
No, because they're both trying to get in. You see these other teams like Gibbs and everyone, they could use that and play around with that. And then come playoffs, now everybody, it's a free-for-all. Go ahead and use all this data. Go ahead and do what you got to do. And look at what the 24 and 48 had a race. Like, they've never been that close in the last 10 weeks. Like, they were non-existent. And then now all of a sudden they just come out and, like, start, like, dominating in the last, like, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. It's like, what? Like, where did that come? It just seems a little suspicious. And this started way back in the Jimmy Johnson days for me.
Yep.
Because I always used to be like, Jimmy Johnson would win in the first 5 races, and then you'd be like, 15 races later, like, where Jimmy Johnson's been, like, well, he's not really doing that well. But him and Chad are just fucking around with setups all year long up to that point, knowing they're locked in, knowing that they could gamble. And I just think it's time to get rid of that. And it bothers me that these other teams don't have that same advantage.
So I'm wearing the tinfoil hat on camera right now. But I'm going to toss it away because I don't think that's a tinfoil hat theory. I think that's a goddamn fact. I think that especially Hendrick runs an R&D car. And even William Byron kind of alluded to it. He said, you know, we got to win. And then we started experimenting. And Rudy Fugle also said, like, oh, some of it has to do with some of my inexperience at the cup level and setting these cars up. I don't think so. I think it's been team orders to do some R&D testing. And you want to know what? Alex Bowman's been really frustrated the last month or two. He talks about his frustrations in almost every interview. And I'm wondering if it's because he knows that he could be running better and he's not because they're trying things out. You know,
I mean, Chase Elliott, the year he won the championship back in 2020, he straight up said, after he won the championship, he straight up said in the post-race interviews, like, we had stuff that we kept.
We've been saving
the playoffs. We were saving all this stuff for the playoffs.
Well, where did you get that? Where did that information come from?
Well, yeah. Right. No, I'm agreeing with you. Like, that's like we did our research.
Right.
We've fucked around during the regular season, and we've saved what we found until the playoffs. And that's when he started winning. I think he won 3 of the last 4 races that year to win the championship because they're doing this R&D, you know. And I think to Eric's point, you know, this win and you're in allows for that to happen. And
you don't really need it. Look at the playoffs. Look at how much more exciting it is with these drivers that you didn't just advance. And then those next 2 races in the playoffs, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Yeah. I just kind of like that. I like the way this is all unfolding right now, where we had 2 non-playoff winners. Now these guys that are used to getting the win and in as a normal playoff year would go, it hasn't happened. Yeah. I like the pressure, the added pressure on these playoff drivers now that didn't just advance in. It's not just a walk in the park for the next 2 weeks. So, I just think it was something that I wanted to bring up and a little. I kind of agree, Whitey. I don't know if it's tinfoil hattie now that you just said that.
Yeah, I don't think so. We'll touch on it a little bit, I think, in the pick lanes. We'll see. It depends on which side of the choose cone you guys go on. But my checkers and wreckers, kind of to your point, I got to give it to Alex Bowman. He was my pick to win. And last week on the podcast, and for a while I thought he could do it. You know, I picked him not as a joke, but like we were talking like, oh, the 3-1 and then the 43-1. What's the next 7-time champion? It's the 48. And because Bowman's been underperforming, it's like it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's like tongue in cheek. But I went with it anyways because who else could pull out a win out of nowhere besides Alex Bowman? You know, like this was a race prime for Bowman to win.
Oh, that's right in his bag.
And then he goes out and he leads 4 times for 107 laps, almost half the entire race. Alex Bowman's up front, you know? So like there was a really good chance there. And to your point, I honestly think that he's been frustrated the last couple months because he knows he could be running better and they're not giving him the setups. Either they're messing around. I don't know. I don't know. Justin, tweet us or talk to Matt or something. I guarantee he listens to the scanner every week, right? Like what's the scanner sounding like? Am I off base here? Because 2 weeks in a row, he's running great. You know, he ran top 10 at Darlington, he ran top 10 here. You know, Byron
start and they say everybody on the now all 4 cars, we have our thing. Just now it's go and perform.
Yeah,
and,
I mean
you're seeing it.
I think we all wrote off Alex Bowman and William Byron out of the round of 16 because we hadn't seen anything all summer long, and now the playoffs are here and they're doing just fine. So definitely interesting. Got to give my checkers to Alex Bowman. And my wreckers, plain simple, I'm giving it to the tires. It made it for an interesting race, I'll admit that, but I'm still real salty about that because it's the 3rd time Tyler Reddick could have won easily, like had the car to win and just didn't. So it's disappointing for me. But we have some other guys to talk about. I mean, Bell, he led once for 12 laps. He had a rocket ship, in my opinion, though. I was just waiting for Christopher Bell to get some clean air. Even listening to the scanners and everything, like they were talking about how quick Bell was. He just got stuck in like 3rd and 2nd and 4th, like where he just couldn't make moves and catch up. But I thought he was doing really great. Martin Truex Jr. led once for 24 laps, finished 5th. He had an up and down day. He was back and forth. I feel like he drove through the field at least 3 times. And then, yeah, Harvick getting junked by Ross and Bubba. I don't know if really you could blame anyone in that situation. I feel like Harvick just kind of had that highline run as those guys were coming up.
Ross shoved them up the racetrack for sure. I mean, Harvick he insinuated that it was air because Harvick did lift. Like Harvick, he said, he's like, he goes, they got in front of me. He saw them washing up and he went to lift, but when he lifted and the air was already off of his car, it was too late by that point, and he got into the wall.
But that's pretty much all I have for the race. Do you guys have anything else to add for the race weekend? All right.
No, it was just there was not much drama other than like the tires to the big guys. You know what I mean? There wasn't any kind of, I was waiting for maybe Suarez to get into Bell. Bell had a good car. And I thought maybe Suarez, he talked earlier about maybe getting into Bell payback.
Okay, let's talk about that because I feel like that is way unwarranted for. Like, I understand Suarez being angry. I don't understand the anger to this level. I mean, I remember the incident between him and Bell. Like, it sucked, but I feel like it wasn't like an intentional thing or anything like that. Kind of like Eric was saying, like just those dirt guys trying to side draft as close as possible. I don't know. Like I heard Daniel Suarez's comments in it, and if you're not familiar, like he was really upset with the way Bell raced him last week at Darlington, and he basically said he's gonna get payback for him sometime during the playoffs. Now, if that actually happens, I don't know. But I know Daniel's also a guy that's kind of been sick of getting disrespected and stuff too, you know?
And I think, like to your point too, Whitey, I think that has to do with just a track house thing. I think they're the bad guy. I think it's starting to get heavy on their shoulders now. I think they're feeling that weight of being the bad guy. I think they embraced it at first and said, it is what it is. This is who we are. We're aggressive. Justin Marks came out and, supported that. But I think they're feeling the weight, and I think frustration might be building in that track house camp.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to know about your guys' opinion personally over the weekend, because like to me, I'm like, man, that just, I don't know, it seems a little far. But again,
I thought the same thing.
Again, we don't know what's happened the last 27 weeks too.
We're not following the Suarez Bell battles as close as we, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So
we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. There might be, and there probably is nothing going on behind the scenes, but we don't know any of that. And I also think it could be where Suarez doesn't want to be pushed around, and he's going to voice.
It's true.
Listen, you mess with me, I'm going to mess with you back. I think a little bit of Ross Chastain is rubbing off on Suarez.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. And I think that's okay. I think that's all right.
He might need that little extra edge, I don't know. I just also at the same time just thinking about it, like I can't believe what a fan of Bell I've become over the last year, and it kind of kills me inside a little bit. But I don't know. He's gonna be a teammate of sorts soon. So
that's how I feel about Ross Chastain. I can't put my finger on it. I just over the past year, I really have taken a liking to him. I just like the way he's going about it, that he doesn't give a shit. He's going to go out there. He's going to swing at you, and he doesn't care. And if it screws him, it screws him. But he's going to go down swinging. And I don't know. I like that mentality, and it's just I think I like it even more because he's not some rich kid that came in. He's not the best thing since sliced bread. He's a watermelon farmer, and he's a blue collar dude who's just going in there trying to make a living any way he can.
All right, but let's move on from the race weekend. Before we do, every podcast loves to talk about the winner on a Monday, one Bubba Wallace, but we also like to talk about the loser on the Bumper Run podcast. And unfortunately for our buddy Shredder Shrey, it was one Kevin Harvick. We kind of touched on essentially the victim of Ross Chastain. So I don't think we really have to go too far into that. He got junked and he was one place worse than Tyler Reddick this week. So saved me from making that again. Anyways, let's move on. I got one pick a lane for you guys. One question. I saw it on Twitter. I thought it was pretty interesting, and I wanted to know your input. Choose cones out. You get to choose which side of the aisle you're on. We have 18 different winners this season. Absolutely insane. Unprecedented. The new car has done what it set out to. Create parity. Even the playing field. But has it negatively affected the playoffs?
Yes.
I don't know. I go no.
You go no? Eric's going yes. All right, Matt, let's start with you. Why do you think it hasn't negatively affected the playoffs?
I go no because at the end of the day, going into Bristol, we don't have. Well, I'm sorry, we do. We have one person. We have Christopher Bell locked in off of points, not off of a win. We have all these other guys who really if something goes wrong early in the race at Bristol, which it could because it's Bristol,
yeah,
they're out. And it's become a points battle at this point. And it's also
it's a tight points battle
some
too.
of the guys that aren't in the playoffs anymore, but are in there to put chaos, to throw that stick in the wheel of a bicycle and watch the whole sport flip over. I love chaos. Hopefully it doesn't come back to bite my driver, Chase Elliott, in the ass. But if it does, it does. Because at the end of the day, I want to be entertained. And I've been entertained. And we're going to see 15 guys essentially go into Bristol that are going to have to fight their asses off because nobody's locked in, like I said, except for Christopher Bell yet. Yeah. And I think that's fun. I think that's enjoyable.
All right.
I think the playoff system was created for the reasons that we're seeing this new car giving us right now. I think they had playoffs and this crazy elimination because you always had the big three. You always had the same people in there.
Yeah.
So guess what? How do you get rid of the same people always entering into the playoffs and dominating at the top 3 or top 5 in the sport? You add a crazy element of a win and get in. This way you can have a wild card winner in there. You can have a crazy, oh my God, he won the race, I'm in the playoffs moment. And to change that, the driver rotation, we always want change in the schedule. Well, I think people are getting sick of seeing the same teams in the playoffs and making it to the next round and dominating. So that's why they kind of created this style of playoff. But the car, this next-gen car, is already creating that parity.
Yeah.
By 18 different winners, it's doing the job of the playoff already by creating 18 different winners. That's where my head goes, and it almost is like we're getting the parity without the necessity of these, oh, my God, you're in the playoffs. Now, in return, it's hurting the sport because now you have these different winners, and the best of the best aren't still making it in there. And it just, to me, it's doing the opposite. And if you either have what the next gen car is doing, and that's why I think we need another year to see if it stays the way it is. That's why, like, part of me is like, okay, we have 18 different winners. Here's the parity that everyone wants, and we're getting it organically, not through a made up system.
Yeah.
So, like, if this happens again and this parity stays, then I think the system playoffs will need to change. But if the parity doesn't stick and we have the big threes again, we have the dominant cars again, and it starts going back to normal because they figure it out, then I think the playoffs are a necessity. You need that extra element of, oh, you could make it if you win. And that's just where my head went. The parity's already there with the next gen cars doing what the playoffs were designed to do already.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle. But I agree with aspects of each side. Where the playoffs were designed to create excitement at the end of the season. You know, Matt, we talk about it all the time. How many times back in the day with the old Winston Cup points format, you lock up the championship and you still have like 4 races left to go. Like, that's boring, you know? So they wanted a playoff system to create excitement, keep people viewing, and kind of go head to head with the NFL too. Like you're going against football, right? But then to Eric's point, at the same time, now you have a car creating parity where it's like anybody can win at any time. You don't know what's going on. It's pretty much all about driver talent and can the crew chief set up the car the way it needs to be for this week, you know? So now you have 2 solutions kind of to the same problem, right, battling it out with each other. And now from my perspective, where I'm like, maybe it's because I'm used to the way the playoffs work. Now it's like fucking chaos where we're in the round of 16 and I'm like, what the is Chase Elliott could not make it to the round of 12, you know? The regular season champion could not make it to the round of 12 if he has a bad race at Bristol, you know? Like now it's like, man, now these playoffs are kind of being exposed because the field is tighter, you know? And now you have guys like Eric Jones and Bubba Wallace, who won a race, right? But now they're capped at 16th place and below, or 17th place and below, because there's no wiggle room with the points now. You know,
we all agree that needs to change.
That needs to change, and I think that would help solve some of the problems. But like, you have Martin Truex Jr. because again, Eric Jones, he had that huge penalty. They lost 100 points at Pocono for that side box. So now, like, he can't even catch up to Martin Truex Jr. So Martin Truex Jr. is locked into 17th place. Nothing's gonna change there, you know. And
what happens if Martin Truex Jr. I'm gonna go in the weeds. What happens if Martin Truex Jr. wins 3 or 4 more races towards the end of this year? I mean, not that he's won any, but and then a guy with 4 wins is 17th in points. How the fuck do you explain that to someone?
And then, like, you know, I said it during our playoff preview when we did our brackets. I go, this year, I kind of just threw it out there, but now, like, 2 weeks in, I'm like, it could really happen. We could crown a champion that doesn't win the race, you know? Yeah. So
I think it's likely.
I think it's very likely now.
I think it's very likely now. I even like raised my eyebrows when you said that, Whitey. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't really happen that way, but it's looking more and more likely.
Especially now, because, like, who knows what the round of 4 is going to look like? You could have someone who had been dominating outside of the round of 4, and then just kill. It could be Chase. Chase could win at Phoenix, and he could be knocked out at any time right now. You know, because there's no
Bristol,
safety.
All of that talk that we just had about Ross and Payback and Bell and Suarez.
Yeah,
they're going to a short track.
Yeah,
low speeds, contact, injury, kind of down. If there's a place that you're going to turn somebody and get payback, it's at a short track like Bristol, I think. So pay attention to that. You could have a big pileup of cars.
Got a lot of desperate cars. So
a lot of desperate cars.
Usually I save the playoff picture for the end here, but let's just go through the playoff picture right now. Harvick is 35 points out. He needs to win no matter what. He's not going to point his way in.
Briscoe, that's very possible. Like,
Chase Briscoe is only 9 points out. Austin Dillon's only 3 points out. Kyle Busch is only 2 points out. Austin Cindric is only 2 points to the good. Reddick's only 2 points to the good. Suarez is only 6 points to the good. And Ross Chastain is only 26 points to the good. Any of those guys decide to wreck out anyone else, you know, like, desperate times call for desperate moves.
Not even just a wreck out, but let's just say they get caught speeding on pit road or during green flag pit stops.
And you end up a lap down,
or
you know?
There's a mishap on pit road where there's a penalty. And during green flag pit stops, they're going to go down 2 or 3 laps like that.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see them fall right down that playoff standing. So, like, they, like, not only the drivers, but the teams and everyone has to come into Bristol in tip-top shape.
Yeah.
I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it right here live on the Bump and Run podcast. We're going to see a fight after Bristol.
I hope so.
We're going to see a fight. Yep.
All right. Speaking of Bristol, though, let's move on to the race weekend. It's Bristol, baby. Thursday night, 9 p.m. on FS1. Trucks on track for, how do I say this? UNOH? Is it UNO? Is it the University of Ohio? It's an acronym, but what? I don't know how they pronounce it. How do I do this?
Sure.
I don't know. All right.
Yeah, I know. I'm seeing it right now, but
I can see the logo. It's black and gold.
Attempt it. Yep.
I don't know. UNOH 200 presented by Ohio Logistics. Friday night, 7:30 Xfinity's on USA for the Food City 300. I could say that one, no problem. And Saturday night, 7:30 Cup on track for the Bass Pro Shops night race. I'm super excited. I can't wait to go over our picks from last week. Matt picked Kyle Busch. He got you 15 points, so you'll be picking first today. I picked Alex Bowman. He got me 43 points. Big points day for Alex Bowman. And I had him in my fantasy team too, so that was an extra big plus. And then Eric, you won the weekend with Christopher Bell. He got you 53 points. So Eric picks last, I pick second, and Matt picks first. What's up?
University of Northwestern Ohio.
Northwestern Ohio. Well, how do you?
University of Northwestern Ohio is UNOH. So it is. It's an acronym. It's UNOH. Just wanted to get that one out
Okay.
there.
I think last year I said the you-know-ho, and I'm like, that's not right.
Ho.
And I meant to look it up before the podcast, and I forgot in between. Anyways, well, again, we're fans. We're not professionals. But Matt, give us those lines we need to make an educated guess. I have someone in mind, and I hope you don't pick
same.
them.
I'm using my gut on this one.
So very interesting the way DraftKings is going into this race. So the lines are provided by DraftKings. Like I always do, I'm going to give you the top 10 favorites to win this race in Bristol. And the bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have a 5-way tie of Joey Logano, Slick Willie Two Clocks, Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, and Martin Truex Jr. all tied at plus 1,500 to win this race. Next up, Tyler Reddick plus 1,200, Kevin Harvick plus 900, Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell, JGR teammates, both tied at plus 800. Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Hendrick Motorsports teammates tied at plus 750. And then your favorite to win the race is Dennis Hamlin at plus 650.
I mean, he's coming the second 2 weeks in a row. The win is coming, right?
You would think.
All right. Well, who are you picking to win for the Bristol night race?
So I've been on a very, very bad tear. Whitey was able to catch up to me. Eric was able to pull away.
Oh, we've tied. We've tied, by the way, officially in the points.
135 points this year.
Eric ran away 921 points. It's a battle for second at this point.
So if you look at my last 3 weeks combined, I didn't get what the amount of points that Eric got out of Bell this week alone. So that's how bad I've been doing. I've been making smart picks. I just haven't been, just shit's been happening.
Yeah.
So I'm going with what I think is a safe pick, but who knows anymore? Someone who led 175 laps of this race last year, someone who won this race last year, someone who needs to prove something, if not to himself, then to the NASCAR world, that he should be taken seriously for the rest of the playoffs. He is our defending champion. Kyle Larson gets it done in Bristol, baby.
All right. I like it. Larson definitely needs to start showing something, I feel like. I am going the opposite direction. I gave him praise just a few minutes ago. Said I couldn't believe how much of a fan I've become of him over the last year. He's been money on short tracks for 2 years now. He's always my sleeper pick on short tracks. He's been running in the top 5 every week so far. The win is coming, and I think it's at Bristol. He's already locked in. He doesn't need the win. He's just going to do it to flex those muscles, baby. Give me Christopher Bell to win in Bristol under the lights.
Solid pick, man. Solid pick.
I said earlier I'm going with my gut on this one. And, when drivers get wins, it usually breeds more wins. They get money, they get confidence, and the teams, they tend to do better down the long run after those wins.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those scenarios where it hurts me to say it, but could have locked himself in already with that week 1 playoff win. I'm going with the 43 of Eric Jones.
Okay.
He loves this racetrack. I think this is one of them that was on their schedule that they had circled. If he did make the playoffs, this would be one of his tracks that I would have circled that I would hope that he'd do well in advance with a win. So my gut tells me that he might not win this because he'll get shoved out of the way for sure, being a non-playoff guy, but you just never know. With the mayhem, I think there's going to be one big thing that I've stated a lot at the second half of this season is take advantage of other people's misfortunes.
Yeah.
And I think with the buildup and the drama of these playoff drivers and how bad these playoff drivers have been, I just think it's optimal for another non-playoff driver to win And I just think Eric Jones is really well there, and he knows it's Matt Kenseth style, knows how to take care of his equipment.
I've got a long shot for you guys. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I'd put some money on a top 5 for him.
Yeah.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. loves Bristol, and if he can keep himself clean, he's going to be there at the end. And we can have a 19th different winner. He's not my pick, but he is a long shot for sure to win on Saturday night.
Fuck it, I'll throw $1 on Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for a top 3. You get some good odds, and maybe it'll happen. You never know. I'm excited to see it. Can't wait. 7:30 Under the Lights, Cup on track for the Bass Pro Shops night race, and we will break it on down for you right here on the Bump and Run podcast Monday night, as usual. For Matt the Statman Reilly, for Eric Daytona Ron, I'm Michael D. White saying have a good night.
The Bump and Run.
There it is.